Right now, from KTAB News, your local election headquarters, this is Big Country Politics.
Thank you so much for being here for BCP. I'm Travis Ruiz, and we do start our broadcast with a look at small business in the Big Country, local leaders speaking with Congressman Jody Arrington in Abilene this last week, and KTAB's Mercedes Hernandez sat in on the round table and has more on the concerns they shared with the representative.
A round table not of knights but of small business owners coming together on Tuesday, voicing their concerns to Big Country Representative Jody Arrington.
I don't think most Americans knew just how tied into China we were on those issues until we needed them, and then we were begging for them.
During the couple hours of discussion, owners shared their experiences of difficulties with the supply chain during the pandemic.
You're talking about a container coming from China that used to cost $4,200 to $5,000, and now it's costing $28,000.
After the meeting, Representative Arrington said the overall discussion was positive, the resilient spirit of the Big Country on display, as well as the owners' thoughts on proposed federal legislation.
I got a sense that they were scratching their heads about why certain policies were still in place. You heard one gentleman talk about doubling down on the timber tariffs. They were finding a way to do well, and they were being resourceful, and they were keeping, I think, an outlook that was optimistic, which was encouraging to me. And quite frankly, I was surprised by it.
In Abilene, with coverage you can count on, Mercedes Hernandez, KTAB News.
Thanks, Mercedes, and a variety of trades among those in the meeting, including boutique owners, home builders, and financial advisors. Moving now to our eye on Texas. The Texas power grid kept Texans' lights on during the cold this month, but energy analysts say this wasn't a true test of the improvements made to our grid. KTAB's Maggie Glenn reports on how any kind of cold weather has Texans on edge and what other changes will soon be coming to the grid beyond just winterization efforts.
City leaders across Texas were taking extra precaution ahead of this cold front. In Abilene, emergency management alerted its local shelters to be ready.
We have had talks to say, hey, in case XYZ does happen, that you guys are able to stand up, watch y'all's capacity. So they've already been put on notice.
The grid held up this time, but Vincent Cantu says it's better to be prepared.
You know, the price of being prepared is it can be somewhat high if we never have to use these things, but the price of not having these things when something really happens is astronomical.
Energy experts say this wasn't a true test of improvements made to the grid. The frigid temps we saw last February were much lower, but they also weren't the worst Texas has seen.
This was not the most extreme winter on record. It actually wasn't all that close.
More change is on the way for the grid, though. Part 2 of weatherization efforts will require the PUC to work with climatologists to ensure the grid will be well equipped for future extreme weather, both hot and cold.
They're required to take into account projections for climate change. That is going to be critical, and it applies to the winter. We will have hotter summers and we will have droughts. And so that affects everything, but particularly the state's thermal plants, which require water to operate.
Those changes will take time. Meanwhile, emergency response teams hope Texans stay alert and heed warnings from local officials.
People can kind of start to get more complacent. It's a lot about us pushing the message, but a lot about folks remembering that self-preparedness is also key.
With coverage you can count on, Maggie Glenn, KTAB News.
Maggie, thank you. And besides physical upgrades to the grid, the state has also improved its communication when it comes to power emergencies. 2 members of ERCOT, which oversees our power grid, will now be present at the State Operations Center alongside the Texas Division of Emergency Management to improve interagency response. And staying with our eye on Texas right now, dog owners, listen up. There's a new law in the Lone Star State which you need to know about, and many of us haven't heard much about it. It's to make sure your dog is treated humanely. Now, in effect, the Texas leash law, your dog cannot be chained where it can become tangled in its chain or rope. It must be able to get under or in shelter and have water nearby. It is a state law, so it applies everywhere. Our report comes from Elizabeth Fitz in Lubbock.
The Safe Outdoor Dog Act went into effect on Tuesday, and owners who keep their dogs outside for extended periods of time may need to make some changes.
It's still allowed to tether an animal, it's just they can't use chains to do that because now it's cruelty. They can't even use the training collars to even walk their dogs anymore. That's only done through like training facilities and stuff like that.
Dogs must have access to water and adequate shelter to protect against inclement weather.
We feel that it's better for them in the long run, even though if the owners don't quite understand.
Before the law went into effect, animal protection and law enforcement agencies had to wait at least 24 hours to respond to calls about dogs that are tethered outside.
We have to respond to those calls as if it's a priority call with any kind of bites, stuff like that too. So it's in that top priority level just because now it's more important to get those resolved and educate people to understand what law was brought into effect.
Lubbock Animal Services has already received 2 calls reporting folks in violation of the Safe Outdoor Dogs Act, but the shelter will offer a grace period.
I like to give owners, a little bit of time due to, some people don't have the funds or stuff like that. So I give them a couple of days to fix the situation and to change the matter with their animals. But beyond that, if they don't comply, then yes, it will result into citations.
So again, a new state law to make sure your dog is not chained but on a leash and has access to shelter and water. Now to our eye on the big country, slower population growth might make it hard for small cities to transition into economic growth, which is what Colorado City is experiencing. But Mitchell County Judge Mark Merrill says soon they're expecting more than just come and go jobs. KTAB's Miriam Chamberlain brings us the latest from C-City.
Around 4,000 people. That's the number of folks in Colorado City.
We need to continue to work to see what we can do to improve on our community and provide businesses and opportunities where people can stay here.
But since the last census in 2020, it's had a population decline of 1.6%.
The businesses like the hospital, the prison, and our schools are some of the largest employers that we have here. But we need to constantly look for new businesses to come in as well.
County Judge Mark Merrill says the town's industries focus around oil and gas, but those workers typically leave town after their work is done.
We have seen this district, which is considered a 2A school district at one time, was probably 3A or close to 3A in terms of numbers.
Although this 1.6 doesn't seem like much, the decline is apparent in schools. As most families, when they leave, they take their kiddos along with them.
You probably had about 1,000 students at one time, and now we've seen that enrollment drop to about 875.
CISD newest superintendent, Dr. Larry Polk, believes despite the low enrollment, it's important to continue to provide a quality education for those students who still attend.
Our goal is obviously to get those numbers back up because what we know is that there are powers in numbers, but what the strategy in order to do that is not so much count the numbers, but make the numbers count.
Merrill says it's important to recognize the positive things that are happening in the city as they take the criticism and build on them.
Hopefully we're going to see some growth. It's something that we're going to have to constantly work on and try to get our population up even higher.
In Colorado City, with coverage you can count on, Miriam Chamberlain, KTAB News.
Now, Judge Merrill says the city has begun the process of recruiting new business and industry. When we come back here on Big Country Politics, the latest in political analysis about the Supreme Court, right here with Dr. Paul Fabrizio of McMurry University. We're back in 2 minutes.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
We're back and of course joined here with our good friend Dr. Paul Fabrizio, political science professor at McMurry. How's it going?
It's going well.
Glad to
be here.
Yeah, glad to have you with us. A big political headline this last week, Supreme Court Justice Stephen Breyer announcing that he's going to retire. And so this makes the way for Joe Biden, President Biden's first Supreme Court pick.
Yes, it does. So this is not a surprise that Stephen Breyer was retiring. He's 83 years old. At some point he was going to. And the thinking was actually that last year he was going to retire. And the story is that he felt so much pressure from advocates, progressives on the Democratic side, that he just said, no, I'm not going to retire last year. I'm going to wait till I'm ready. He's now ready. He knows this is his time to retire.
Now, a lot of times they do die in office, as you know, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes.
An example of that. But he's been on for a long time, since 1994. So that's almost 30 years. So a long time.
Yeah, the average time that someone's on the Supreme Court is about 17 years historically. He's been on for 28. And so he's been lucky, he's had the opportunity, he's had the health to really make a difference on the court. And so now's the time for him to step away. He wants to do it so a Democratic president can replace him.
So a lot of folks have sided him with the liberal side, right?
Yes.
He's the liberal wing, and so he's kind of been one of those ones that's kept the balance, right? Well, not kept the balance, but was on that side.
Right.
Yeah.
Currently, there's 3 liberals on the Supreme Court. He's one of them. That's a simple way to characterize him. In actuality, when you look at what he's done, he's actually much more focused on the practical side of the law. And he has also worked towards compromise. He believes that the court cannot be seen as too political. It can't be seen as too ideological. And so therefore, and you think especially of the case involving the Affordable Care Act, Obamacare, where he and the Chief Justice sat down and really worked out a compromise to keep that law constitutional, but at the same time to strip away parts of it that were particularly onerous to conservatives. And so there, he had his liberal beliefs, but he said, we got to make sure that the court is still respected. And so he tried to make that judgment and many other judgments the same way, so it's not seen as too political. So if he were here and I'd say you were a Democrat, he would say that doesn't matter. He said, I would say you're a liberal. He said that doesn't matter. He says I believe in the Constitution. I believe the importance of the Supreme Court, and that would be most important to him. So that philosophy will be missed, whoever is going to replace him.
Speaking of his replacement, President Biden has vowed in the past that he wanted to nominate a black woman for that position. And so that black woman, if he were to, would be the first. Would she be the first black woman?
Yes.
Yeah, and so that would be very historic.
Yeah, that would be very historic. President Biden has done what Ronald Reagan did. When Ronald Reagan was campaigning, he said, I'm going to put a woman on the Supreme Court. Lyndon Johnson said, I'm going to put an African American on the Supreme Court. So Biden is just keeping with that tradition. And so that's what he promised to do. The expectation is that he will do it. And already names are surfacing of likely possibilities. They're all in the short list. We'll see what Biden's actually going to do.
Yeah. When we talk about the Supreme Court, for the average person out there, they may not understand really what the Supreme Court job is. Can you break that down for us?
Sure. It's very simple. It's called judicial review, and it simply means you look at something and you determine if it's constitutional. Does it fit in with the Constitution? And that is actually where you have all sorts of disputes today. And you think about the Constitution, and how do you look at the Constitution? The conservatives on the court all look at what the original text of the Constitution was. What were the thoughts of the framers of the Constitution? So that's where the conservative viewpoint is. Breyer and the liberals say the Constitution was written 230 years ago. It didn't have access. The framers didn't have access to technology. Mm-hmm. They didn't understand the concept of privacy. So therefore, you need to look at what was written, but you need to adapt it to today. And so Breyer would talk about a living Constitution, whereas the conservatives would say, no, we have the Constitution as written, as handed down by the framers. That's what we use. Breyer was also controversial because he would say, let's look at what's taking place in other countries. How are they interpreting their laws? And he would say we need to be in sync with other Western democracies. And that is a very, very controversial position that he took.
Yeah, a lot of Americans like to be America.
Yeah, exactly. Why would we look at another constitution? Why would we look at anything else? What difference does it matter that Japan does that or France does that? Breyer says it does matter because we're all human beings.
And the Supreme Court making a lot of headlines, obviously, even this last year and this last couple of weeks. I think we can talk about COVID-19 and the immunization and what OSHA and what the Biden administration was doing. And so their ruling made it to where employers of more than 100 folks they are not mandated to have vaccinations or test their employees, right?
Right, and that was a 6-3 ruling, I believe. I think it was a 6-3 ruling on that, where the 6 conservatives said, hey, OSHA does not have the constitutional right to do this. And the 3 liberals said, yes, it does. And they cited history, where in 1905, the Supreme Court said, yeah, a vaccine mandate is perfectly okay. So there's a conflict, obviously, there, how you look at the Constitution.
And throughout history, the Supreme Court making a lot of decisions, come in my mind, I think of Topeka, Brown versus the Topeka Board of Education, right? That being a big one. And then, of course, Roe versus Wade. That's just a big one and still in the spotlight right now.
It certainly is. And the Supreme Court has taken a couple of cases. The most important one is from Mississippi. And Mississippi has passed a law, it's not in effect yet, that would ban abortions after 15 weeks. The current standard is Roe versus Wade, which allows women the right to choose to have an abortion. And it's been added on to that with the Casey decision back in the 1990s that said you cannot place an undue burden on women. So you have prior Supreme Court decisions, you have Mississippi's law, and the Supreme Court said it actually wants to consider Mississippi's law to see if conditions have changed enough that it might throw out Roe versus Wade or the Casey decision. We'll see. They've had the arguments already. Supreme Court is now debating it. Stephen Breyer will participate in those debates, and then a decision will be made by the end of the year.
Back to his successor, what is the timeline typically like for nominating a new justice?
That's actually a really interesting question. For the most part, if you ignore the strange things, the president makes the nomination, and then the Senate discusses it, debates it, and comes up with either a yes or no, usually a yes. And it takes the whole thing 2 to 3 months. So I think Breyer, his decision is he'll step down at the end of his term, so that'll be the end of June. So the Senate actually has until the end of June really to make its decision once Biden picks the person he's going to pick.
So midterms won't necessarily come into play with this yet, right?
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah.
Where we're in a midterm election year, that always influences politicians. They're always thinking about that. Now, I have to tell you, just to add to that, the Supreme Court ends its term the end of June. It begins its new term the first Monday of October. So technically, the new person doesn't have to start till the first Monday of October. So that actually adds more months to this whole process if that's what anybody wants to do. My sense is that the Senate has so much they have to, they haven't even passed a budget yet for this fiscal year, which started in October. So it's got to get going on things. And so it has to pass a budget. There's, remember the Build Back Better of last year? That's still going on. There's a potential war with Ukraine. So the Senate has a lot to do. So they're going to try to squeeze this in there somehow.
Very interesting insight, Dr. Fabrizio. We talked about Roe versus Wade. We want to talk about an interesting local scenario that's happening at the statewide level and locally here. That's Sanctuary City, and we'll talk about that when we come back right here on Big Country Politics.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
Back with Dr. Paul Fabrizio with McMurry University. We're talking about the Supreme Court and Roe versus Wade, which of course is the big issue of abortion in the United States. But here in Texas, there's a push for cities to become sanctuary cities for the unborn. Now, while Abilene doesn't have a place to get an abortion, there is a push, a grassroots level push for the city to become a sanctuary city for the unborn. What exactly does this even do?
That's actually a really interesting question. First of all, we need to remember the operative law is still Roe versus Wade. Okay? Texas also has its law that bans abortion after 6 weeks, but that is only enforced through local citizens suing each other. So the understanding is that these sanctuary cities would ban abortions inside a city. So a city council pass an ordinance or some other way to ban abortions inside the city. But it would only take effect if Roe versus Wade is overturned. And so each city would then decide what they're going to do. It's been a push. It was a push here a couple of years ago, and then COVID came along. It's sort of been pushed away, but it's been recently renewed. In May last year, Lubbock became a sanctuary city. I think the vote was about 63% supporting it inside the city, and so I don't know much more about that. Wichita Falls, my understanding is, did the opposite, and they chose not to become a sanctuary city. So, but right now it would all be symbolic until the Supreme Court decides on Roe v. Wade.
Very interesting. And so it is important to note that the City Council has not taken this as an agenda item right here in Abilene, but during public comment there have been groups of folks who have spoken about it. And my understanding is that there is a petition going around to try to get it to be on the agenda for the City Council. I think another interesting note that I learned was that the city of Impact, which we all know Impact is very small, right?
Yes, it is.
The city of Impact is the smallest city in Texas to have become a sanctuary city. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
It is.
And I'm amazed. I didn't realize Impact had enough citizens to even exist and have a government or anything.
Which I think Impact, their claim to fame, I guess, was whenever you could buy booze there.
Exactly.
Very, very interesting stuff there. Real quick, I want to touch on Jody Arrington, Congressman Arrington in town, talking a lot about inflation. That seems to be the hot topic among business owners here, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And you know, I listened and read about what he talked about, and I think he has a frustration that anybody in government actually has. There's not much a government can do about inflation. It's not like the president can come along and say, don't raise your prices anymore, don't raise wages. They can't do that. Richard Nixon tried that with wage and price controls back in the 70s, and that led to, in fact, more inflation. So there's really nothing that government can do. And so, you know, it seemed to be that Jody Arrington had more of a listening session than anything else. He really can't do much. Now, we need to pay attention to the Federal Reserve because they had a meeting this past week and they're talking about starting to raise interest rates. That is an action that the Federal Reserve, not the president, not Congress, but the Federal Reserve can do. When they start raising interest rates, that'll make money more expensive. It'll tighten the money supply. And that's what you have to do to really cut down on inflation.
Very interesting. Yeah, we'll keep an eye on that.
Yeah. And you think about all that's going on. You think about the supply shortages. You think about Ukraine. It's no wonder prices are going up. Wages are going up. Think about all the money that the U.S. government has poured into the economy because of COVID. All of that is causing prices and wages to go up.
It all goes up, right?
Yes, it does.
Absolutely. All right, Dr. Paul Fabrizio, McMurry University, as always, thanks so much for being here with us today.
Thank you for having me here. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. BCP continues right after this.
Big Country Politics on KTAB continues.
Our thanks, as always, to Dr. Paul Fabrizio with McMurry University for his insight. We certainly appreciate it. That's it for Big Country Politics from all of us here at KTAB. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you next week. Same time, same place.